So hello, everyone. I'm Erica Markin. I'm Director of Development here at Utah Clean Energy. This is our first installment of the virtual brown bag lunch and learn with our staff experts, Kevin Emerson and Jennifer Eden. We're really excited to have all of you join us today, and we hope to do more as we go forward into the year. One note, if captions would be helpful, on the bar at the bottom of your screen, there's a show captions icon, and you just simply select that, and that will translate the spoken part into written. And that will also go on the recording that we'll be sharing tomorrow. So go ahead and go to the next slide, please, Kevin. So as you may know, Utah Clean Energy is Utah's foremost climate and clean energy advocacy organization, and we are committed to transformative climate change solutions to improve Utahns' health and prosperity now and for future generations. But I want to be sure to mention that our work is in partnership with you. Climate change solutions aren't enacted in a vacuum, and it's thanks to people like you who are taking the initiative to implement climate change solutions in your community that we're able to actually make this happen. So thank you. We will open it up to Q&A at the ending, we'll leave about 10 minutes, so at 10 of. And if you have a question in the meantime, please just go ahead and put it in the chat. And at the end, when we do the Q&A, I'll read through the questions that are in the chat. And as I mentioned, we'll be recording this and sharing it out tomorrow with everyone who's registered. So with that, I'm absolutely thrilled to turn the time over to Kevin and Jennifer. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Erica. My name is Jennifer Eden. I am a Senior Climate and Clean Energy Associate at Utah Clean Energy. And I'm very pleased to be here and share some of this information with you today. We're going to be talking about the Inflation Reduction Act. This was passed by Congress and signed into law in August of last year. And one of its primary goals is to decarbonize our society in order to address climate change. Decarbonization just refers to moving away from sources of energy that emit carbon dioxide and other greenhouse gases, which in turn reduces the impacts of climate change and reduces pollution, both of which benefit our health and our well-being. How do we do this? The cleanest source of energy is energy we don't use, and many of you probably are familiar with that mantra. So any way that we can reduce energy waste through energy efficiency is crucial to decarbonizing one's home. Once you have reduced energy waste, then moving toward electrification is basically replacing gas appliances with electric ones. The idea here is that as the electric grid gets cleaner, your emissions can decrease if you have electric appliances. The electricity grid is becoming less carbon intensive and will continue to do so. And additionally, you can use clean renewable energy at your home now by installing solar panels or participating in solar bulk purchase programs. What we're going to present here is our most up-to-date understanding of this law. Federal guidance is continually rolling out, and the fact sheet that we will provide to you at the end of this presentation has links to updated guidance. Additionally, tax considerations should always be verified by a tax advisor. Kevin, next slide, please. So we see there being 4 steps to home decarbonization, which pretty much follow the steps that I previously spoke about. And what we have here is the 4 steps along with some of the IRA provisions that apply to those steps. So if we need to improve efficiency and reduce energy waste, as well as electrify and reduce fossil fuel use, many of those actions are supported by a tax credit for energy efficient home improvements, as well as 2 rebate programs, which are called Homes and HERA. The tax credit is in place now. The rebate programs will need to be enacted, and that Kevin will talk about. For electric vehicles, there is a tax credit for new and used electric vehicles. And to add clean power and storage, such as solar panels or wind power or geothermal, there's a tax credit for residential clean energy as well. And I will then one more, just to talk about the difference between tax credits and rebates. Tax credits come directly off your tax bill. So to get a tax credit, you install the system, you fill out the appropriate form for your federal tax return. And then when your taxes are calculated, the amount of the credit comes off your total bill. It doesn't matter if you've already paid those taxes as part of income tax withholdings through your employer or estimated tax that you've already paid. It will come back to you as a credit if you've already paid your taxes, or just deducted from the amount that you owe. Because of this, it will take some time to receive that tax credit. So if you installed a system, let's say next month of 2023, your tax return, wouldn't be due until next April. And then it takes a little bit of time to receive that tax credit. So there is a lag time between paying for your system and receiving the tax credits. Also, there are provisions to roll over the credit to future years if you don't owe enough in taxes in the year of your installation. Rebates, on the other hand, either come off at point of sale. So if there's a rebate on an energy efficient refrigerator and you go and buy it at Lowe's, there might be a point of sale rebate. Or you may need to submit some paperwork and get reimbursement. And some installers will deduct the rebate from your cost and apply for the rebates themselves. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin, who is going to continue in some more detail.
Thanks, Jen, and thanks, Erica, and thank you everyone for joining us today. And it's great to see a lot of familiar faces and names. And it's great to have the opportunity to share this information with you today. So I'm going to jump right in. Jen and I are going to be walking you through these 4 steps of home decarbonization, and then to tell you more about the specific, really tax credits in this presentation that are available for each step. I will mention briefly the yet to be launched residential rebates from the Inflation Reduction Act. But since those programs aren't live yet, we won't be going into much detail there. So I'm going to talk through the first 2 steps of home decarbonization, reducing energy waste through efficiency, and then electrifying and reducing fossil fuel use through electrification. And then Jen's going to chat about the tax credits for driving electric, as well as tax credits for clean power and storage. So there are 3 federal incentives for residential efficiency and electrification that have either been expanded or created by the Inflation Reduction Act. They're listed here in the columns. The federal 25C Energy Efficient Home Improvement Tax Credit has been expanded. And then 2 new programs, which again, I'm going to just touch on very briefly and won't go into too much detail, are the Homes Rebate Program and the HERA Rebate Program. Homes is the Homeowner Managing Energy Savings Program, which is a whole home energy efficiency rebate. And then the high efficiency electric home rebate program, otherwise known as HERA, is really focused on electrification. But as you can see here on this table, the tax credit and these two rebate programs, once they're live, there's a lot of overlap between what upgrades can be incentivized through the different rebate programs or the tax credit. For future kind of planning, I want to let you know it is possible to use both the energy efficient home improvement tax credit and one of these rebates for the same upgrade, but it's not possible, as far as we know, based on the guidance we know of today, it's not going to be possible to use the two rebate programs for the same upgrade. So keep that in mind as we continue through this presentation. And again, as a note, I'm going to almost exclusively be talking about the energy efficient home improvement tax credit today, since it's available today. So as we think about decarbonizing our home, as Jen mentioned, the cleanest source of energy and the cheapest source of energy is energy efficiency. So we want to focus on reducing energy waste first. And this is critically important as we're thinking about electrifying our homes. In the state of Utah, we have, let me see if I can put this the right way, we have the highest percentage of homes that are fueled using natural gas for heating of any state across the country. So as we think about shifting away from gas for heating, space heating, water heating, and especially when we're talking about space heating, it's critical that we make sure our building envelope, our building efficiency, building insulation, and air tightness is really optimized. So those the electric powered efficient heat pumps don't have to work any harder than they need to provide both efficient heating in the winter, cold winter months, and then also for cooling in the summer months. So that's why we are advocating that we start with this low-hanging fruit of energy efficiency. So the kind of provisions that we're going to, or the home improvement kind of categories that we're going to be touching on are improving insulation, improving air tightness, and also replacing leaky windows and doors. And the energy efficient home improvement tax credit has provisions that address these directly, as well as electrification upgrades, which I'll get in just a minute. So digging into the energy efficient home improvement tax credit, these are some of the high level details that we want to start with. The tax credit is already live, like I think all the other tax credits that we're going to be talking about today. It became effective January 1st of this year. It's set to be in place for 10 years through 2032. So the good news is that you have some time to plan some of these upgrades and take advantage of this particular tax credit, as well as the rebates that will be coming later over a 10-year period. The focus of the tax credit is existing homes, and some of the provisions can also apply to renters, which is a little bit of a new and less familiar area of the tax provisions, but that is the case. And we can talk about that if needed, if there's interest. There are no income limits to the tax credit, unlike the rebate programs, which focus very importantly on low and moderate income community members. And again, as Jen mentioned, this is a federal tax credit, so it's claimed when you file your federal tax credits. The good news is that this energy efficient home improvement tax credit can be taken multiple times on different improvements over this 10-year period. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, about how that might work as we go forward. Unlike some of the other tax credits, this tax credit cannot be carried forward into future years if you don't have a tax appetite for the year that you may be claiming the tax credit. So you'll definitely want to be talking with a tax professional to assess that, if you consider using this tax credit. Okay, so imagine you're planning a home decarbonization upgrade. Remember, the first step is to reduce energy waste, and these are the energy efficiency focused improvements that are eligible for tax credits under this this home improvement tax credit. So insulation, well, starting off with in that bottom right-hand corner, we want to start off with an energy audit. So 30% of the cost of an energy audit, up to $150, can be claimed as a tax credit for an energy audit. And that's a really important place to start, so you know how efficient your home is and what are the really key areas to improve the efficiency of. In addition to the audit, insulation materials and air sealing materials that are designed to reduce the home's heat loss or heat gain can be covered to the tune of 30%. And these would need to meet the prescriptive requirements established in the most recent energy code. There are also energy efficiency, the tax credits can apply to exterior doors and exterior windows and skylights. So for doors, It applies again just to exterior doors and those that are Energy Star rated. You can get the tax credit for up to 2 exterior doors, so a maximum of $500. And when it comes to windows and skylights, same 30% applies up to $600 for the home for exterior windows and skylights. And again, those windows would need to meet the Energy Star certification. As I mentioned, air sealing is also extremely important. So making sure the air leaks are tightened up is an allowable upgrade as well that you can claim 30% for the cost of. In some cases, some of these upgrades, you can count the labor costs, and some you're not allowed to consider the labor costs. That's the quick overview of the energy efficiency kind of first step of this particular tax credit. But this tax credit has been expanded. So in addition to supporting energy efficiency, it also can help you make improvements in your home to electrify and reduce fossil fuel use. And so we're talking about efficient heating and cooling using heat pumps or other technologies, but we're big fans of the heat pumps. Also induction cooking, heat pump water heating, and important upgrades to the electrical panel and electrical wiring in your home. So let's look at those. This second set of improvements applies to, in the language of the law, the IRA, Inflation Reduction Act, it applies to qualified energy property. This is just a legalistic way to say the heating and cooling systems, the water heating systems, and the electrical panel upgrades. So the equipment that is eligible for this tax credit must meet or exceed the highest efficiency tiers established by the Consortium for Energy Efficiency, a federal group that helps set energy efficiency tiers and standards for the most efficient equipment around the country. And this tax credit, again, is 30% of the cost. However, unlike the energy efficiency upgrades that have a cap of, I think it's $1,200 per year on the efficiency improvements, there's actually a higher cap for the 30% tax credit for the heating equipment and heat pump water heaters, which is up to $2,000 per home. So if you're installing a heat pump or heat pump water heater, you can max out that tax credit up to $2,000 per home. There are, some other types of equipment that are eligible, but they would not, like a central air conditioner, just a plain simple efficient air conditioner that would max out at that $1,200 per year cap. But if it's a heat pump water heater or an air source heat pump, you get a higher maximum tax credit amount. And then it's really important, as especially in older homes, some homes are not going to have the panel capacity and the wiring needed to support a heat pump water heater, for example, if it's a 240 volt heat pump water heater. So the tax credit also applies to up to $600 toward the cost of improving your electrical panel, sub panel, branch circuits, feeders, as long as they meet the requirements of the National Electric Code. And those upgrades have to be done in conjunction with one of these other system upgrades, so a heat pump water heater or an air source heat pump. So when you consider the full 25C energy efficient home improvement tax credit altogether, it can provide a maximum tax credit of $3,200 each year for any new improvements that are made between now and 2032. So you could do some of the insulation improvements, and if you can take 30% up to that max in 1 year, there you go. If you want to put in an air source heat pump in 1 year, you can max that. In that same year, you can max that out up to $2,000 and take $3,200 1 year, and then come back and do some other improvements and take another up to $3,200 tax credit in a future year. So again, there's this is just one of the federal incentives that's available today. Before I hand things over to Jen, I mentioned these 2 rebate programs. There is over $8 billion for all the 50 states to launch these 2 residential rebate programs. Utah was allocated just over $100 million, and each of the 2 programs will be receiving about $50 million each. These are 10-year programs. They're not live yet. We're waiting for guidance from the U.S. Department of Energy to states. Here in the state of Utah, the Office of Energy Development will be the agency responsible for submitting a plan to the Department of Energy. Once we see that guidance from Department of Energy, we will be tracking that and doing what we can to support the Office of Energy Development in building out a really robust and bold plan, but it's not available yet. Just a really quick overview. On the left, the homes program is really focused on whole home energy efficiency. The maximum rebates for whole home energy savings is $8,000 per home. There are bonus incentives for low-income community members. So you could get half that amount, $4,000 per home, if you don't meet that in low-income eligibility target. And there's also higher incentives or higher rebates the more energy you save. So you can get higher rebates up to that full $8,000 for saving 35% or more through a whole home energy upgrade. And then on the right side, the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Act, or HERA, is really electrification focused. It is, we don't have all the guidance yet, as I mentioned, but it's designed to be a point of sale rebate. And this has an even bigger rebate per home of $14,000. And it has even more of a focus on supporting upgrades in low and moderate households. So we're not going to go any more detail than that because these programs aren't live yet, but we're really excited for these programs to take effect here in Utah. And on that note, we'd love to keep anyone in the loop who's interested in making their voice heard to help encourage the state of Utah to submit a plan for a very bold and impactful plan, really at the soonest possible opportunity after Department of Energy provides guidance to states. So if you're not already signed up for our newsletter, you can scan this QR code now, or you can just go to our website and sign up. And we will make sure when there is guidance and we have ideas to share with the State Office of Energy Development and we need the community to weigh in, we will let you know what that opportunity looks like. So I'm going to one more thing real quick before I hand things over to Jen. The IRA also expands the tax credits for new residential construction, single family and low-rise multifamily. It gives bigger tax credits for Energy Star new homes of $2,500. Per home or per multifamily housing unit, and then $5,000 per home or multifamily housing unit if it meets, if the home or multifamily building meets the Zero Energy Ready Home standard. So these are, these are 10 to 20, 25% efficient, more efficient than the energy code for Energy Star, and then more in the order of 50% more efficient than the energy code if you build a home to the Zero Energy Ready Home standard. So these are really important standards that already have a lot of traction, but if you are looking at a new construction, these tax credits would apply as well for new construction. Okay, now, why don't you take it away, Jen?
Thank you, Kevin. So you've made your home efficient now. You've taken your time, you've done it right. And part of the reason that that's really important is, one, so that systems work as efficiently as possible, and two, so that you size any electricity generating upgrades to the needs of your home. And one of the things that I want to make really clear is that electrification will increase your electrical use at your home. It will decrease your gas use or whatever other fuel sources you have, but it will increase your electricity use. So while you could install solar panels today and size a system appropriately, you might need to upgrade that if you really want to try and cover your full use in the future. So let's look at electric vehicles and let's look at solar power. So again, we're back to our little home here. And now we're focusing on electric vehicles. So we have an electric vehicle in the garage here. It's plugged into the wall. So in order to take advantage of tax credits for electric vehicles, you can have either credits for the vehicle itself, or there are some credits for the electrical charging infrastructure. So if we can go to the next slide. The electric vehicle tax credits are slightly more complicated than they used to be. You can get up to $7,500 in a tax credit for a new electric vehicle. It has to meet vehicle manufacturing and assembly requirements. And then there are some battery requirements and critical mineral requirements. And so these account, each of them, for half of the tax credit. And the critical minerals don't have to be sourced within the United States, but within a country that the US has a free trade agreement with. Very importantly is this link at the bottom. That's continually being updated. And will tell you exactly how much the vehicle you're looking at is eligible for. There are additionally price caps on the vehicle. So if the sale price of a sedan is $55,000 or less, then it's eligible for these credits. If it's an SUV and it costs $80,000 or less. And additionally, there are income caps. So for an individual, that income cap is $150,000, head of household $225,000, or joint filers $300,000. So this is to further incentivize not luxury vehicles and not super high income earners. Additionally, now there is a used vehicle tax credit. Next slide, Kevin. Which is up to $4,000 or 30% of the used electric vehicle price. These vehicles need to be purchased from a dealer, and the tax credit will be received directly from the dealer. So that should be more point of sale. The credit can only be used once per vehicle. So if you're the third owner and this tax credit was already taken, you may be out of luck. The vehicle price cap is $25,000, and the income caps are listed here, and they're half of what they were for a new vehicle. And again, the eligible used vehicles are at that same fueleconomy.gov website. Finally, there's, in order to charge your vehicle at home, certain low income and non-urban communities are eligible for a tax credit of 30% up to $1,000 for home electric vehicle charging equipment. This is for the next 10 years. And this applies also to bi-directional charging equipment, which can charge an electric vehicle or discharge your vehicle battery to the grid. Most vehicles aren't capable of this at this time, but that is something more vehicles are moving toward. So we have our electric car, we have our efficient home, and now we want to get that electricity directly from the sun. So clean power and storage. Solar panels are what we're most familiar with for home use, but there are other technologies as well that are available for this tax credit. And before we talk about that in detail, I want to just spend a couple quick minutes talking about solar power and how it works. Basically,
we're at the 5-minute mark.
Yeah, thank you. The solar panels on your roof absorb energy from the sun and convert it into electricity, which goes through an inverter, which transforms it from direct current to alternating current, which is what all of your appliances use. If you have a battery, you can store the electricity from the sun in a battery and then use it when the sun isn't shining. Additionally, you can use that solar energy directly to charge your car, to run your dishwasher, to turn on your lights, or you can send some of that energy back to the grid. So the advantage to a battery is that you can island your home in the case of a power outage and still have some electricity available. You can also take advantage of the full value of that electricity as opposed to what the utility might pay you for the electricity you put back into the grid. So quickly then, The next slide. We're finally going to charge up our home. So we're going to put solar panels on our roof, or maybe they're ground mounted in your backyard if that's a better choice for you. And you are eligible for a residential clean energy tax credit. This is a simple 30% tax credit on renewable energy systems. It's extended for the next 10 years through 2032. And the energy systems include a bunch of different things in addition to solar. Next slide. Solar panels, energy storage, which is batteries, small wind turbines, solar hot water heating, fuel cells, and geothermal heat pumps, which are actually using the constant temperature of the earth as a source of energy for your home. And like with the other tax credits, if you put a solar system on your roof this year, and then you realized with more electrification, you needed more and you had more roof space, you could add more in another year and get a tax credit on that. You could add energy storage in the future and get a tax credit on that. So moving back to Kevin, he's going to wrap this up. So we have time for your questions.
Thanks, Jen. So I'm hoping and imagining some of you are wondering how much you might qualify for in tax credits and in the future rebates that I mentioned that aren't live yet, haven't been launched yet, but we have some good information about. You can scan that QR code at the top right of the screen and put in some of your details to find out how much you might be eligible for. We are sending you to the Rewiring America calculator through that QR code. And I went and did a kind of a hypothetical household of 4 who owns their home and they have a household income of $72,000. And this is what that particular household would be eligible for. Given the time, I'll just give a quick overview and mention that this is the full amount of the rebates and tax credits. Some of these we don't know what the value is because there's no cap. Those in green, the battery storage, geothermal, and rooftop solar, there's no financial cap. So it's really just 30% of whatever the cost is. Some of these other ones, as I mentioned, you're able to take the tax credit, the residential energy efficiency tax credit, and one of the 2 rebate programs that are yet to be developed and combine them. But you can't combine the 2 rebates together. So there is a little bit of overlap between the different amounts that are listed here on this table. But as you can see, there's a lot of incentives through rebates or tax credits to support efficiency and electrification upgrades and electric vehicles and on-site renewables. So we won't really go into any more of this, but we just wanted to let you kind of to put this together to really illustrate how there's a lot of resources on the table. And pretty much across the board for all of these, there's 10 years, as I mentioned before, to plan energy efficiency and decarbonization upgrades in your home. And these tax credits and rebates can absolutely help you get there. Let me see if there's any other main point that I want to make before we wrap up. I don't think so. So let's, we definitely encourage you to scan that QR code later on to see how much you might be eligible for. And in the meantime, let's open it up for discussion and questions.
Great. Thank you, Kevin and Jennifer. Yes, and we will be sharing the QR codes that were in the slide presentation, as well as the links in the email that will go out along with the recording tomorrow. So don't worry if you didn't capture those. And now, while we're answering questions, please take a moment. I'm going to launch a quick 1-question poll and hope that you'll just respond to that as we gauge, what to do in the future for topics. So let's see. Dennis Mullen asks, what can nonprofits do to take advantage of IRA legislation?
I'll take that. So nonprofits, they're considered commercial And so that's a whole other topic, which is fairly complicated. But the tax credits are available to nonprofits. They're not exactly the same as what we talked about here for homes, but they are available for direct pay, and that's a big difference. And we have some information on that we can share at a later date, or you can reach out to us.
And I would just add on to that.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry. I would just add on that there is a different commercial building focused tax deduction that looks at commercial buildings, and it's not a tax credit, it's a tax deduction, but it is available for nonprofits to take, and they can pass on the value of that tax deduction to their architect or design build engineer or energy savings company. That's outside of the scope of this presentation, but we do have information about that on our IRA webpage on the Utah Clean Energy website.
Thank you. Jean asks, or Jen mentioned participating in a solar bulk purchase program. If that's not addressed as part of your program, would you, I would appreciate an explanation.
So there have been some of these in the past. They're usually community-based. Salt Lake City has hosted some, the University of Utah has hosted some, where, well, there's sort of two different buckets. One is where there's a program and certain installers and have negotiated a slightly lower price because they're doing a whole bunch of projects. And then there also can be opportunities where you buy into solar elsewhere. And that can be through the utility. But this one in particular is more a community-based bulk purchasing program. So basically pre-negotiated rates that are slightly lower for installation.
All right. Brooke asks, what about improvements prior to January 1?
If they were solar or clean energy, anything in 2022 is eligible. For the home improvements, it starts in 2023.
Okay. Charles Ashurst asks, are there businesses that specialize in improving insulation in older homes?
Yes, there definitely are, Charles. That's a great question. We don't maintain any kind of list of contractors to that effect, but there are places to go. Also, once the homes and HERA rebate programs get launched in the state, I expect we will be hearing a lot more from those kinds of companies. I think the best place to go today, looks like you're in Logan, so probably I would say if you're served by Logan City Power, I would probably start with the Dominion Energy website. Both Dominion Energy and Rocky Mountain Power, if you're a Rocky Mountain Power customer, maintain lists of vendors who specialize in all the whole variety of different improvements that you can be doing in a home. So I would start there. And actually, even if you're a Logan City Power customer, that list that Rocky Mountain Power maintains of their contractors, which they call their vendor network, would still be a really good resource for you to start with. So go to rockymountainpower.net, go to the home energy or home savings section, and then there's a place where you can find a contractor.
Kay Glad asks, does a sliding glass exterior door count?
Yes, absolutely. As long as the sliding glass exterior door meets the Energy Star or other standards that might be specified for the tax credit. If it's a sliding glass door, that's fine, as long as it meets the efficiency and performance requirements.
All right. Ines Olujic, apologies for the name pronunciation. Does this count for getting a sealed or insulated garage door?
That's a good question. I do not believe that those would be eligible for the energy efficient home improvement tax credit, because typically garages are not part of what they call conditioned space. So it's not part of the home that we're heating and cooling. And so an insulated garage door doesn't, in that way of thinking about the home, doesn't have the same effect on our home's energy consumption. So I do not believe that would count, but I could be mistaken. I'm happy to look into that. And if you want to shoot me an email, feel free to. My email's on the screen, and I can get back to you on that.
Maya Maradova asks, are there resources, website where we can get more information on all these programs, as well as requirements, eligibility, suggested vendors?
Yeah, that's with regards to what we've spoken about here today, that is part of the fact sheet that we will distribute. We are also trying to keep our website up to date, but the resources in the fact sheet go directly to the federal government guidance and rules. So that's probably and it will be updated as they get more information. So those resources that you'll receive via email tomorrow or from this QR code should help out.
Doug Moore, sorry if I missed this part, was the 600 tax credit for windows total for the home or per window?
I wish it was per window, but that's total per home. And keep in mind that when the homes and HERA rebate programs get launched, there will be additional financial incentives to help cover the cost of those kinds of improvements. There are also utility rebates, which we haven't even talked about today, that can help provide financial incentives to improve your windows as well. But yeah, that is per home.
Kay Glad asks, on the panel upgrade, is that the main panel or a sub panel?
I believe both would be eligible.
Okay. Lee
I'm
Schuster
almost certain about
asks, I have yet to see Energy Star approved air to water heat pumps listed, only water to water heat pumps for geothermal. When will that appear?
Lee, I'm sorry, I have no idea. Jen, have you come across anything about air to water?
No, I was going to ask whether they were talking about heating and cooling or water heating.
Yeah, I think it's
it's
mostly used with hydronic heating, although it could be used also for water cooling. But most of the geothermal people are telling you don't go down the path of air to water heat pumps, because then they point you to the Energy Star approved list of hardware, and there are no air to water heat pumps up there yet. I think they'll come in the next 6 months.
Yeah, that's not a technology I'm familiar with, although I'd love to hear more.
We have just about time for one more question, which is going to Mike Egan. Is there a tax credit phase out based on income for residential applications?
Not for the energy upgrades, so solar panels, batteries, geothermal, there is no income qualification. For some of the other programs, there are income limitations where we mentioned them.
Yeah, but when it comes to the energy efficient home improvement tax credit, there is no income limit. This QR code on the screen, you can download the fact sheets, and there's a lot more information about the rebate programs that we didn't have time to talk about today, including income eligibility, what rebates are available for the different incomes and for the different levels of energy savings in case of the homes program. We don't have a list of vendors that we recommend, but it has a lot more detail about some of the specifics for the tax credits, but also those rebate programs. So to the next question from the next question there, that fact sheet would be a great place to get that kind of information.
And this concludes our virtual brown bag for this quarter. Thank you everyone for joining. Keep an eye out for the email tomorrow with the recorded video, as well as future virtual brown bag lunches. And thank you for being part of the climate change solution. Have a great rest of your day.